Hi, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel, The Day Before. Today, we're going to talk about the presumption of innocence in the U.S. legal system. So, in the U.S. legal system, there is a way of doing things because we want to give people a fair trial in criminal proceedings. Therefore, within that system, all people who are accused of a crime have the presumption of innocence. This means that within the confines of the court, a person is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It is the state's responsibility to prove guilt, and defendants have a right to not testify against themselves. And that presumption of innocence still stands, meaning that we preserve a person's constitutional right against self-incrimination, as we cannot hold the decision to not testify against the accused. To be legally guilty of something, one must plead guilty in a court of law, or they must be found guilty by a jury of their peers during a trial where it is the state's duty to present evidence against the accused, and it is the defense attorney's job to defend their client. However, legal guilt does not equate to factual guilt. It never has, and it never will. In the United States, almost all criminal cases end in plea bargains. Over 90% of federal and state cases end in plea bargains and never make it to trial. This is not to say that everyone who pleads guilty in a court of law is factually guilty. To the contrary, our court system depends on most cases ending in a plea agreement. If most or even half of the cases saw a fair and impartial trial, then our court system would be overloaded and it would come to a standstill. Honestly, they wouldn't even know what to do. Many defendants are told by their lawyers that the best thing to do is to plead guilty and that there is less risk of a more severe punishment by pleading guilty and not taking a case to trial. They are often told that there could be prison time or large fines if they are found guilty by the court. Therefore, most people don't want to take that chance, and they're made to fear getting a fair and impartial trial. For those cases that do go to trial, the prosecution does not have to prove that a defendant is factually guilty of a crime. They have to prove legal guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution uses all types of evidence to prove guilt. And time again, the types of evidence we have seen used in court, oftentimes called forensic evidence, are later deemed to be junk science. Some examples of this include bite mark evidence and some forms of blood splatter evidence. There are also times when a person is factually guilty of a crime but not legally guilty. The most prominent case of this in my mind is when a person is not legally guilty due to reasons of insanity. More cases where a person is not legally guilty but they are factually guilty is when the police never arrest a person for a crime they committed. They're never found. The infraction or the violation is not legally a crime, right? There's some stuff that's just not legally a crime that's morally wrong to do, and you are guilty of doing something wrong if you do it. And there are also some technicalities, such as the police botched a crime scene somehow, where, a person will get off in court on a technicality, not because they're innocent. Now, before we get into some examples, let's define legal guilt and factual guilt. Factual guilt is where a person actually committed a violation of some kind, such as committing a crime. Legal guilt is where a person has been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law to have committed a crime, or where a person pleads guilty. It has little to do with factual guilt. The first example I will use is O.J. Simpson. Though he was found to be not guilty or innocent in a court of law of the murders of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman, many people believe him to be factually guilty. This first example was an easy one, though, and I won't give you my personal opinion on O.J. Simpson's guilt. But the next example is where a 26-year-old male robs a liquor store. Everything is on camera. However, a rookie cop arrested the man and made a rookie mistake. He didn't read the man his Miranda rights. Ugh. The suspect can prove this too, because that's also on camera. Now, even though the 26-year-old male is factually guilty of robbing the liquor store, everyone can see the film where he robs it, right? He will not be able to be found guilty in a court of law due to the technicality, and the case will be dismissed. Finally, I'll end with a real-life example. Someone stole a weed eater from me about a year ago. It was brand new too. I didn't get it on camera, and I know that there's no way to catch the person that stole it. And that does not mean that the person is not a thief. That does not mean that the person, whoever it is innocent until proven guilty. To the contrary, they're guilty in the most important way. They are factually guilty of stealing my weed eater. Murder clearance rates have been declining for decades, and it sits at around 50% right now. What this means is that only about half of murders end in arrest. So a person who is very much guilty of murder has about a 50-50 chance of getting away with it. In the United States, a majority of sex crimes go unreported for numerous reasons. That is not to say that we have a bunch of innocent men and women walking around, right? Therefore, it bothers me when people use that little quip, "What happened to innocent until proven guilty?" It didn't go anywhere. It's actually right in the courtroom where it belongs in order to ensure a fair trial. However, out here in the land of the free, it's one's own responsibility to protect themselves and also keep their loved ones safe. I'm sure it's clear by now that it's not the government's responsibility. Therefore, I'm not going to be leaving my children with someone who is even rumored to have touched somebody else wrong. I'm going to be trusting my own judgment, my own gut instincts about other people. And that's all I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you all have a lovely week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.